Alright, welcome back to my new video. This one I kind of made, I think the name of his comment was One Room Shed or something like that. But he's commented on a few of my videos. He seems like he's a pretty decent Radio Shack guy. And he gave me the idea for a review on my Radio Shack items. These aren't the only two. I have two others. One's in a million pieces. Behind this, ironically. And then the other is my first clock, actually. Or first clock radio that I bought with my own money. But also just first clock radio combo. So I want to give my opinion on Radio Shack. I've actually went to one of their few stores left. It wasn't the same as they used to be, which really was a disappointment. They didn't have, like, all the little radio parts and really cool electronics. But I got a t-shirt and stuff, and it was still pretty cool. And, these are some of the Radio Shack units that I do own daily drive. I do have the Super Tapes, I think they were called. Was that what they were called, or was it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the name of their tape line. I have a few of those, too. But I wanted to start with the unit that came in a lot, the Realistic Mini Set IV. Model number 14-8V1. So I rebuilt this unit. Somebody really kept good care of it. The belt didn't have much of a curve where the pulley sat. So I suspect it was in use for a long time. I've been running the counter to see if that fully works. It's rolled over to 485 so far. That's where I last left it. But it's a really good unit. Besides my only complaints on it, the radio doesn't receive all that well, in my opinion, even though, I mean, the antenna wire is busted, but it's still touching the actual metal, because if I move the antenna around, it receives better, which is great news. It was a pain in the butt to solder all the times, and it wasn't sticking, so that was an issue. And, also, the record quality is kind of low, but it's also from, like, the mid to early to late 70s, or some mid-70s, I'd say. If I had to guess the year, I'd say 76, but I'd say the year radius of when it came out was probably between 74 and 79, late 78. I don't know that for sure or not, but that's what it definitely has, the trim line and look of. It works really good. It's definitely 70s for sure. A few ways you could tell is, well, the word condenser mic, but also this metal trim on the controls and stuff. Separate eject key. This kind of grooving here, these bigger groove holes. And so it's a pretty cool little unit, and I actually like it. It's like a mini boombox. It's pretty beefy, though. It's in a very weird era for these, because not many were designed like this. It's kind of the mini boombox era, but different, so to say. But it works good. And I've been liking it. Once more, very little to complain about on this unit. It doesn't get as loud as I hoped for, but it does get really loud still. And so it's a good unit. I would love to use it as a daily driver. The batteries don't fall out, even though it's missing the battery cover. It was a fun little project, and it fast forwards and rewinds and now and records. I figured out why I wasn't recording right is because of this SP monitor. I thought that was something to do with the output, because monitor, at least early 80s stuff, was related to the headphone jack, because it was a recorder. So this has mono output. So I thought that maybe turned the earphone jack into an input for a recorder or something. But no, it changes the microphone completely in sensitivity. And so I had it set to the in mode, and it was making all these screeching noises and stuff, and echoing my voice. I was like, well, what the hell's going on with this thing? And I flipped that switch and found out that that was the entire problem. And it does have this hand holder. I've seen ads for this. It's a pretty cool little business recorder, you could say. Something you can carry around to work at the time. Somebody would have paid pretty good money for this and definitely cared for it over the years. There's a little crack here, which kind of sucks, but it's worth a pretty penny, and it's definitely a keeper. It's proven really good so far, actually. Then there is my first working desktop recorder ever. This unit right here is, I bought it at the swap meet on my birthday. My parents brought me there. So by Destiny Mall, where the farmer's market is on Saturday. On Sunday, they got the swap meet or the regional market or whatever. But I found this at in the bottom of a box in the corner of my eye. This was when I first started getting into 80s tech. So this was my first birthday when I was actually into the old tech. And somebody had this for sale. It had the phone cable stuck to it. It was sitting in the bottom of a box. And I was on the hunt for a good tape recorder or something because, I didn't have many at the time. I only had like couple tape, like 2 Avery stereo cassette players. And like 2 that worked, or 1 that worked, I think. Yeah, I had the Sankeo. That was a desktop recorder from the 70s, but that was shot. Had a bad motor and belts and tires. Then there was the CFS 1000, my first real boombox, or first boombox, but I was scammed on, so I didn't count it as my first real boombox, so to say. That would be the 545. And otherwise, I had my T27 at one point, but that failed midway. That lasted like 6 months. It was a great unit. It was my first Walkman, first tape player, and that thing's the best. And then I had a Jensen remake that sucked. But I bought this. I expected more than what the guy asked for it. I expected at least $5 at the cheapest, but the guy said $3 for it. It worked. He said it worked fine. It had I included the phone cables, the original power cable. So I said, sure. I bought it, brought it home. My parents were like, are you sure you want to do this? He was probably scamming you or something, but it was $3. I couldn't care that much. It wasn't like even for parts or repair, that would be a pretty good price. It would be cheaper than buying it off eBay broken. And so I brought it home, tested it. The first time I tried it, it didn't power on. I thought it was odd, but I wiggled the cable around. It was very loose in the jack from wear. And it powered on and played, but there was no sound. I flipped the tape over, though, and it was just at the end of my tape, and it played fine. Fast forward and rewind was a tad slow at times, but I used it. It recorded great. The voice activation was very odd. I never knew what such a thing was like. And I found out it was a very common unit. It's probably one of the most common tape players ever made. It continued up until 2012. So these things were actually made from, judging by the trim, early to mid-late 90s-ish into the 2000s. It continued for a long time, up until my sister was born, pretty much. So it's a good unit, and it does have dirt on it still. My dream for this tape recorder was to be right here in my shop. When I bought it, I didn't have much of an idea for it, but it was such a good voice recorder, and it also had all this garage dirt on it that I've never really tried to clean off purposely because it just gives it some patina, so to say. I was like, man, this thing would just be a great little shop recorder for voice recording and stuff, and my dream was to have it pretty much right here. And I made that dream come true. I don't use it as much. I used to use it as a fast-forward rewind unit mainly because it was such a durable, affordable unit that I could just run tapes through it. But I didn't want, and at the same time, I felt kind of guilty because I wasn't playing it or recording off of it as much. And I haven't done it as much here, but I did do belts recently because the take-up reel belts couldn't fast-forward or rewind well since I got it. So I added new ones of those, and it works fine. I haven't had trouble with it at all. The volume knob was scratchy when I got it, and it took forever to get the contact cleaner. It took like a year, but I finally got it. But it works amazing. The tape counter works. I've used it off batteries before. It's had stuff spilt on it before. I had one time I was drinking Mountain Dew and it spilled on it. Second time there was water, but it comes right off, and it's a really good unit, I'd say. My only complaint is obviously that it's mono, but otherwise it's a really good unit, and some people made mixtapes off of these. I mean, it's a dumb idea. It's not a good mixtape machine for sure, but it's a great voice recorder, and I still have the phone cables, so somebody might have used it as an answering machine. It's a really good daily driver unit if somebody was to have one. I'd encourage you buy one. They're cheap. But yeah, this thing's been with me for long time now, almost I think slightly longer than my 545, my beloved stereo, and I'd encourage people to buy this one for sure. Then I bought this at a yard sale, is if you've seen my yard sale hunting video, you'll see that I bought a Optimus. So you can see it's not currently in one piece. This is what I meant by it's in a million pieces behind this tape recorder. Is this motherboard right here? Is that. So right now it's under work because it would play kind of warbly. The flutter was very off. And the sound was very low. I think I did belts already, or I might have taken them off but not put new ones on. No, I put a new belt on. Pull the motor out, I guess. Yep. I'm not sure if the motor's any good or not because the belts looked fine. And so part of me was worried that that motor's burning out, but it looks like a late model one, like, because this is a very late model drive. So I have parts for this drive in that I have one of those motors. I got a bunch of them actually. And I got to figure out the amp and see if it's worth fixing. I plan to resell it. The cassette door housing's busted. I got to figure out fixing that maybe. But my complaint on that is it's a very late model by Radio Shack, so it's really when they started going downhill. So it's a very cheap drive. It was Chinese. It was made in China. And it's a pretty late model cassette drive. This one was made in Fort Worth, Texas, and then this one was made in Japan, all custom manufactured, obviously, because that's Radio Shack's little trademark. But that one is when they started getting really crappy, and I don't know if it's worth fixing. It's not really. It's a very common unit, probably worth $15. I think I paid $20. Oh wait, no, I spent 30. No, hold on. I think I spent 25 in total on everything I bought from that guy, which was that, a master amp by Pioneer that was somewhat refurbished, under-counter kitchen clock cassette player by General Electric. It was a stereo one. And then, I bought something else off of him. I don't recall. I don't think I did. But, so yeah, there's that, which is under work. Then there's my first clock, which, if you look right there, it still stands tall. If I ever had to get rid of a clock, this one I couldn't part with. So, this unit I bought after my great-grandma passed away at what was called the Bargain Shed. She used to bring us there, so after her funeral thing at the church, we went there, and I found this for like $4. It was this cute little clock and I was just starting to get into 80s tech because I got her old Walkman, the HST27A. And she didn't even listen to rock or anything, so I was surprised she had a super bass one with auto reverse. But, you know, this clock stuck out to me a bit, and so I bought it. My parents said they'd pay for it, and when I brought it home, I used to sit in front of it on my dresser and just listen to the radio for even hours sometimes, because it was just a good little unit, and I never had a clock radio before, and so it was fun. And it was 90VQ at the time because it was the only radio station I knew. I didn't like their music, but it was the only radio station I knew. And then I found out how to tune into Syracuse's classic rock. This was right when I started getting into radio stuff too. So yeah, it was a good unit. I loved it to death. I woke up to it a lot of times when the school year started. I would set the alarm on it. And now I wake up to cassette tape, and I got another clock cassette player over there, the General Electric with the busted door. But you can't wake to tape on that, or I'd use it. If the flywheel didn't stick sometimes. The problem with this one is the tuner stub does not move with the tuner knob anymore. It did when I first owned it, but after a while, I think the plastic busted on it. And as easy as it is to fix something like that, I don't really feel like pulling it apart when it still works fine. And the clock is very much off. It says 6:45, but I just did that so it wouldn't flash the 12 o'clock display. But it works good. It's been with me for a while. I don't use the radio on it much. It's just the clock. But it's still got a lot of sentimental value to me. And same with the Radio Shack. And even this little realistic now, or this huge realistic, are definitely worth keeping. So I'm only selling one of these Radio Shacks. I don't have many Radio Shacks. I'd love to get a little more into them, but you know, I just haven't needed to. And then also, a little unrelated note, but I also have the Pile, which is the IFR 1200A, the General Electric Walkman, my AT&T microcassette answering machine, because that needs the phone line cable output, because some kid must have ripped it off back in the 90s. My Sony TCWR 535, the deck that, just like the Roadkill's Rotson, if you've ever seen Roadkill, never fails to fail. Then the Brentwood, which I got to figure out permanently hot wiring instead of the bench power supply, of course. And then I got the General Electric 8-track player back there. That just needs to be reassembled. I just haven't had time. And I also wanted my dad to help me because it doesn't hurt to have an extra set of hands. But we just haven't had free time. And then obviously, if you could see down there, the turntable project. I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to finishing it. I really want to make it a really cool unit. I don't think I'm going to give up on it because it's so rare. But it needs to be cleaned up more. I need to refred, tap out the old holes where the screws were stripped that I had to drill out. So I got to retap those. Then I got to clean up more melted belt, fix that up, put it back together, find VU meters for it, rebuild the wood frame completely from scratch probably because this wood frame's trashed. Find a new tuner face plastic because it's cracked on mine if possible, and all sorts of stuff like that. And so I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but when I'm old or something, it'd be fun to listen to it. It worked good when I used it last, when I first fixed it and made it just work, where it was playing. It couldn't rewind a tape or rewind, and it wouldn't rewind, but it would play, fast forward, stop, record, and the VU meters didn't work, but the turntable worked amazing. Even the record changer works, and I'm very stunned of that. But you know, it's banged up. Somebody didn't store it well. Then there's the JVC PC30 that needs tires, but I can't get anywhere for it specifically. It's almost impossible to find stupid tires for a cassette deck now. And then there's obviously the Sony Scope, which needs the battery rebuilt. It's 125 volt 6-cell battery pack that's corroded out. I got off the parts I needed, part of the battery caddy bay. And then the little component and the battery slot desoldered off the old corroded battery. And then I got the Realistic Model 12. That's another Radio Shack, actually. My Realistic Model 12 VCR, which does that work. Considering it's been banged up and it wouldn't give up, I was impressed. But it's probably the worst VCR of mine. It's an 80s, judging by how compacted in the trim line and the parts in it. Realistic Model 12 VCR, something you would have put in an RV or something. AC/DC operation with mono outputs. But the video was always fuzzy on it, had loading troubles. You'd have to hold it at a slant. I did belts on it when I first got it. And fiddled with it for about an hour, and I was about to give up, and it just started working. I've cleaned out the tracking knob with contact cleaner. It's a VCR without the R. It's not a recorder, which is really odd for this unit. But I pulled it apart farther, and the head drum's pretty trashed. I'm impressed it even was able to recognize videotapes. I did the backside of my fingernail on it before. I've done head cleaner, like rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip and stuff. But no matter what I did, the video was always fuzzy, and now I know why. The head drum's trashed. So I need to find a way to rebuild that. I also had to pull off the audio head because some parts are rusted because it was water damaged when I got it. And also I got to realign. That means I got to line those. And I got to figure out the mode switch. I would like to clean that out because I don't know how good it is. So it's in a million pieces. I can't do much with it right now. I'd love to get the JVC PC30 working because it's a lot like my first boombox, the CFS 1000, but obviously more pro. So it plucks at my heartstrings a bit. And then the cassette deck, right now, surprisingly, I haven't really given it any attention. I just haven't felt like working on it because it's a pain in my ass. And, well, it's a stupid freaking Sony that's notorious for failing. And it's still giving me shit after I'm probably its last hope. So that one's going to be fun. I just haven't felt like working on it because it doesn't deserve my attention right now. And then the IFR, I need to find a tube screen or an LCD conversion. And then the General Electric Walkman, which needs a pinch roller and some little bit of solder work, and the AT&T, which needs a stupid phone cable, but we don't have any I can cut to solder into it. So yeah, a lot of my projects are always at their standstill because I'm still saving up for a car. But I might be buying tires, so the GVC might actually get complete. I've listened to it before, so I know it works fine. I know it plays tapes, but it played them kind of slow. I would have trouble near the ends and stuff because, had that issue. But also the auto reverse trigger stub that comes out is broken on the plastic base, so I glued it in at one point, but the glue failed, so it needs to be re-glued. And cross my fingers that it stays in there, because then otherwise it only has the directional loop mode auto reverse, which I mean isn't bad. So yeah, that's in a million pieces, but I know it worked at one point. I know it still can work. But yeah, so that's my review on Radio Shack and update on all my crazy projects. And I guess I will see you in the next video. And if the guy who commented to give me the video is watching, I hope you enjoyed this for sure. And now I'm going to go upstairs and ironically probably listen to this the Realistic Mini set. See ya.